I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to my sponsor, P2 Collectibles, located at 204 East McGalley Road in Muncie and on eBay as well. So next time you're here in Muncie, let us know. Come give us a visit.
Hey, what is up, y'all? This is Al from Plus 3 TCG, and I'm coming at y'all with a budget deck profile. We are going to be looking at Endemions. I know this deck has been already doing stuff at the PPG Pro Tour. I've been looking at this deck. I haven't got to test a ton with it, but I have had some interaction time with the deck, and I do think there are some plays you can make with just 3 of the structure decks combined into one to make a very budget pendulum playable deck. It's been pretty busy with grad school. We only have about 2 more weeks, and I will be able to have a little bit more of a consistent upload schedule. I'm not making any promises, but I am saying that I am trying my best to continue on with Yu-Gi tubing and giving y'all some creative deck profiles, and or I guess this one is semi-standardized because it is just 3 structure decks, but that is neither here nor there. We're not going to keep talking, we're just going to go straight into the deck profile. 3 of the Endemion structure decks. So we have our boss monster here. We're just going to read all of the new cards because they are textbooks, and I think it is still very relevant to understand what all of these do. So if we can focus here, this has some cool negation effects, and it just does so much, and it scales really good too. It's just a great card. So its pendulum scale is 8. You can remove 6 spell counters from your field, special summon this card from the pendulum zone, then count the number of cards you control that can't have a spell counter, destroy up to that many cards in the field, and if you do, place spell counters on this card equal to the number of cards destroyed. You can only use it once per turn. It's kind of a going second effect. You can't use it going first, but you have to destroy your own stuff. And then the monster effect, once per turn when a spell or trap card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can return 1 card your opponent you control with a spell counter to the hand, and if you do, negate the activation. And if you do that, destroy it. Then you can place the same number of spell counters on this card that the return card had. Lots of words. While this card has a spell counter, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. Also, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So we already have an negate effect, an in-card setup defense, as well as the next effect. When this card with the spell counter is destroyed by battle, so that's not as good. You can add 1 normal spell from your deck to your hand. We're kind of limited with the structure deck to what we can add, but we can still add some pretty good extenders. It's just a overall good card, and most of your boards are trying to end on this card. And then we're playing only 2 Reflection of Endemion. This card is good, but not as good as its other counterpart. It's got a Kieran-like effect, which is kind of what you're going. I feel like what you're trying to go for is a combination of Mighty Master, Reflection, and Magister, so that you can have multiple points of interruption. So this is a 2 scale. Its pendulum effect is each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you remove 3 spell counters from this card, special summon both this card from your pendulum zone and 1 monster from your hand that you can place a spell counter on, and if you do, place 1 spell counter on each. That's a pretty good effect. You're essentially playing 5 of these because of the Searcher. Its monster effect is what we're trying to go for, though. I think a possibility is to end with this in hand and then try to use Magister of Endemion's effect so that you can special summon this and try to continue on that, because if it's special summon, it has a pretty cool effect. If it's special summon, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and 1 card you control the spell counter, accept this card, return that opponent's card and your card to the hand, then place the same number of spell counters on this card that your return card had. When this card with the spell counter is destroyed by battle, you can add an Endemion card from your deck to your hand. So that is pretty awesome. Both of them have extender effects and defensive effects, as well as just being really good cards. The scales are good, and since they're searchable, what more can you ask for? In this version, I'm not playing 3 of those. Instead of 3 of those, I'm playing 1 Endemion the Master Magician. Essentially, this is just your spot removal. You can summon this on like a turn 2 play, and then discard a spell, and then pop a card. And that's why we're playing that. 3 more additional extenders. 3 Magister of Endemion. All of these effects are pretty good. Each time a spell card is activated, place a spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card. Special summon both this card from your Pendulum Zone and 1 face-up monster from your extra deck that you can place a spell counter on. If you do, place 1 spell counter on each. Less relevant, the monster effect is the one we're trying to go for. You can special summon this only once per turn when this card declares an attack. Place a spell counter on it, and once per opponent's turn, quick effect, you can remove 3 spell counters from your field, special summon 1 monster from your deck that you can place a spell counter on. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. So you can, in combination, you can have this in deck, and then utilize this effect to be able to end on a board of like Reflection, and then ending on Mighty Master, and then Magister. Just potential plays that you can go into with this deck. Oh man, and then if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone, then place the same number of spell counters on it as spell counters on it that it had as a monster. My goodness, man, some of these words, some of the way the sentences are structured. Anyways, Servitum and Endymion, this is probably the one you're trying to see most. I would argue this is the wrong common to have had. I would love to have seen this in a super. Anyways, neither here nor there. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card, special summon both this card from your Pendulum Zone and 1 monster from your deck with 1,000 or more attacks. So that opens up a lot of options. So you can summon Magister, you can summon Endymion, you can summon Reflection. Ideally, you're going for the Mighty Master though. And then that's just its pendulum effect. And then you can special summon this only once per turn. This card with a spell counter can attack directly once per turn. Once your opponent's turn, you can discard 1 card to place spell counters on each card you control that you can place a spell counter on. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. So, something to keep in mind with this card. That's all the new stuff. And then we're playing 3 Magical Abductor just because of its extension effect. You can also add Droll, which is pretty good. Just another extender. We have a defensive starter in Fairy Tale Luna. This card's awesome because not only do you get to add a copy of itself and effectively be able to potentially pendulum summon, it's not happening very often, but you can pendulum summon this, and then you have multiple lines of disruption. And we're playing 3 Droll and Lockbird to round off the monster lineup. The deck profile is going to take a little bit longer just because we were reading through all of these newer cards. We want you to understand what these cards do, and I know sometimes reading all that stuff can be annoying, so I'm just doing it for y'all. This card, though, hallelujah, Spell Power Mastery. Add an Endymion card from your deck to your hand, then you can count the number of Spell Power Mastery and Spell Power Grass you control, and or have in your graveyard and place that many spell counters you control among cards that you control that you can place a spell counter on. It's just it just does a lot for the deck. You get to have your starter, and it acts as an extender, and a pseudo-defensive card for, I guess, or a pseudo-defensive-like effect because of Magical Citadel of Endymion. 2 Terraforming, obviously, to search out the 3 Citadels. I say that it has a pseudo-defensive-like aspect to it because you're just putting stuff onto this, and you can remove counters to prevent destruction, but they can still just bounce it. Don't really need to say a whole lot about Magical Citadel, just recurse spell counters, and you can just utilize them in cool different ways. Spell Power Grasp, I don't think it's a super great card, but it's a cool like pseudo extender, I guess, because this deck revolves around counters, and if you can get a ton of counters on Magical Citadel, you can like just utilize them pretty well. Rumored Path. This card's weird. You can add, like, if you go for some reason second and you open this and Droll, it's kind of cool, I guess, to be able to have another line of disruption, but you have to be able to gain them essentially to be able to effectively Droll, because Droll is only stopping them for a turn. They can still play. It's just stopping their searches. So I don't know. You can also, I guess, add your various Endymion cards, but the only one that you're really going to be getting is, like, or not even Endymion, you're just going to get, like, Luna or Endymion, the Master Magician. Yeah, so it's cool for an extender, but it's only late game. And then Endymion's Lab is pretty much just another copy of Magical Citadel, but it has a cool battle effect where once per turn, after damage calc, If your spellcaster monster is destroyed by battle, you can remove 6 spell counters from your field, which is theoretically pretty easy. Special summon a level 7 or higher spellcaster from your hand or deck. So, just a cool extender, I guess, but it's for going second. And 3 left arm, since we need to be getting to our spells, ideally our spell power mastery. The only problem is you have to banish to the rest of your hand, so your hand kind of has to be broken. So if you open like left arm and a pot, then it's not as bad. So opening like left arm, pot, and then like 3 pendulum extenders, not terrible, but you just have to open up a lot of cards, and that is less than ideal. And then last but not least, we have the 3 Daybreaker, the Shining Magical Warrior, because this is all that it came with. It's pretty bad actually, but it's got a defense, cool defensive effect where you can remove 2 spell counters from this card, then target 1 card in the field, destroy it. It's kind of a turn 2 play. I don't think you should be trying to make this turn 1 because it doesn't do anything for you, and you can just, it's just another card for them to get off the field, and then I guess you're playing 3 though, so you have spares. It doesn't really matter though, because like I said, its defensive effect I think is the most relevant. Sure, you get to play spell counters on this, but it doesn't really matter. Its attack doesn't matter that much as well. You're just trying to use it for the defensive effect. But all in all, great reprints in the deck, but it's just another way of playing Pendulums, and there are arguably better ways to play this deck, but we are balling out on a budget, trying to play with what we have, and it's not terrible. You can still make pseudo interruption boards decently consistent, but if you add those new dual power cards, then you should be even better. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, y'all. Glad to be back, trying to keep it as consistent as possible for y'all. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And this is Alex from +3 TCG, signing out.